So in the first video, we created the base swiper, which is this one, you could see, and also showed how to do autoplay for this one. And then I also showed how to create a vertical slider and then do autoplay. But now this is the different one where you could have, like, say something like this showing for the autoplay slider. And also I will show how to show a text number on it. And again, this is going to be a free template that you could buy. Like, there's going to be 10 sliders available in here, which you could just download for free from my website, but you still need to watch videos to understand. And if you go down, you could see I have horizontal cube, which is next video, the cover flow one, then flip swiper, you could see, then we have card swiper, and obviously you could add anything inside of this. It doesn't have to be just this design. Then we have thumb swiper. This one is also like very versatile because you could add anything in here. It doesn't have to be just an image. You could have like text, anything that you want, whatever the way you want it to look like. Then we have the curved slider. It should be around here, but I forgot to reset, so you could see. Then we have panorama slider, you could see. So this is going to be available in the template and also in my YouTube videos. And I'll also be creating a last, like, a overview video on how to create the template, but that's just going to show you how to customize the template and not go into detail of how to make it. And if you watch the videos of how to make it, you would understand it much more better, and then you would be able to also create your own stuff with it. So if you haven't watched the custom base slider, which is a bigger video, if you haven't watched that, I would suggest watch it because it goes in much more depth, which is why I'm going to make it a bit faster, else all the videos would become like very huge, which is why I created one big video, and so the other video can simply be made like a lot quicker instead of explaining every single thing. So let's do is create a container. This one doesn't matter what you do, and inside of this I will create another container. This is going to be our first, let me go here, it's going to be our first swiper. You go to docs, and then if you check in getting started, this is the same layout that we made. If you want to learn more about how to check or how to know which layout this is, then please watch the custom base video. It's a lot more detailed one for a purpose. And let's just call it as, I guess, autoplay slider or swiper. So we need a swiper. Inside of this we need a swiper wrapper. So let's go in it. Make sure it's full width, okay? You cannot give it box width. It is to be full width. Here we add swiper wrapper. All of them should be full width, and instead of this I will add another container, which is going to be my slide. So let's do slide 1. Let's quickly duplicate this, just name it slide 2, slide 3, okay? And then we will basically we can give, let's say, a button, icon, anything inside of this, or you could give it in here too, okay? So it can be inside this one or outside this one as a sibling, but not like you cannot just add anywhere, but it needs to be like child or sibling. So this is like child, right, of autoplay slider, because you could see. But if you add, let's say, something like this, then it's a sibling, you could see. So let's add our icons. This is going to be my left arrow. This is going to be my right arrow. You could add anything, okay? You don't have to just add, you know, icons. You could add anything. And then I'll create another container, which is going to be for my pagination, which is basically this dots or, you know, number, or there's also progress bar. So let's first fix some stuff. So I've explained this like way too many times in the other videos, so I don't want to explain again and again. But basically you just give it 0 padding so that there's no gap between, like this, you can see. So 0 padding. Even in the swiper wrapper you could see there's a gap between the slides and this. We don't want that, so we do 0. And then between each slide we don't want to give any gap because that is something that we control with our code. Then in our swiper wrapper we make it go left to right. Make sure no wrap is selected for all 3 devices, especially for mobile, because Elementor by default uses wrap, so we have to make sure we select no wrap. Now you could add this in a container if you want. It's in its own container. If you download the template you would find that it's in its own container, but it's up to you how you want to place it. If you want, you could also place it inside the swiper, okay? Next thing is to give our HTML, but before that we have to give all of them the CSS classes. So if you go in here into the base slider, you could use any one of them, okay? It doesn't have to be like this specific slider. If you go into the swiper sliders, you can see there are so many of them. You could actually use any one of them. It doesn't have to be just this one. So I'll just give this a DM based swiper. All of them would have blog posts. Okay, by the way, all each one of them would have a specific blog post that I'll link in description, and also a video. This DM based swiper is given to the autoplay swiper. Then you can see we have wrapper class, slide class, next element, previous element, and page destination element. But where is it? Where is the CSS class? It's actually in the code, because that way you would actually understand how to read the code. So in the wrapper class, we have given DM base swiper wrapper. So let's copy this and give it to the wrapper container instead of this. We will go and choose the DM base slide, and we will give it to our slides. Next is next element. Make sure you do not copy the dot. Without the dot, copy the next one. Give it to your next arrow. Previous element, give it to your previous element. Give DM base swiper pagination. And then we can simply just copy the code. But you know what? First, let's go to our slides, and give it some color. So I just gave them background color so that we can see it pretty quickly, but obviously you could add anything that you want inside of it. Then let's just copy the code, the whole code, go into our HTML and paste it. This is the same step that I showed in the first video till now, okay? And then we need to make sure our autoplay swiper has overflow hidden so that anything inside of it is not visible. Sorry, anything outside of it is not visible. Now, if you wish to edit, let's say slide 1, slide 2, you could basically just hide the top ones and you would edit it. Or if you want, you could just make it be small size so that you can edit it. But once you have done everything, just make it full size, okay? Now, if I do play, there should be a bug because I forgot to do one step. And that is to give our swiper wrapper some height. Now again, if you want to learn it in much more detail, please watch the first video. It's a bigger video, but it actually goes into like much more depth. And I didn't want to make like each video that much depth. And you could see all the buttons are basically working perfectly. And obviously you could place them in any way. So you could make it go left to right, place it in center, and add all of three in their own container. So we can just add, an extra container so that we add everything inside of it. So it's your choice how you want this design to look, okay? Oops, I didn't add it inside. If you want, you could just place it inside the swiper. Sorry, not in the wrapper, but in the swiper. In wrapper, there should only be slides. And then I'll place it in center like this. Now let's create the autoplay part. Now if you go to the bottom, like slowly go down, you would see there's first thing, well, this is the different pagination styles. So let's move away from it for now. And we are adding autoplay to slider. So when you add this code, we will basically activate autoplay. So if I go and copy this in here after this one initial slide comma, if I add this and now do play, every 2.5 seconds it will change. You could see it's automatically changing every 2.5 seconds. So in this code, you would see that there's a delay. This basically defines how much longer the slide should be changing, or how much time it should take before changing the slide, I mean. Then obviously if you turn this to true, so instead of typing false, if you type here true, it will basically disable on interaction. You could do pause on mouse enter, stop on last slide, reverse direction, and all that stuff. Now this is what I want to create for this video. So till now, whatever I've shown, I've already done it for the last 2 videos. So let me copy this code in this one. And you would see there's something called on. Now this is something on SwiperJS events. On basically is like an event when something happens. So this is autoplay time left. Based on that, we can do some changes. So there are a lot more stuff, like when slide changes, do this stuff, like all these events, like when someone does click, when someone does double click, do this and all that stuff. So right now what we are basically saying that on, when autoplay time left, this runs like every frame. we will basically do something to our swiper, which is this. If you check in here, it says, we are basically creating a variable called swiper and then storing all that data in that variable. Again, if you don't understand, just don't worry. If you do not understand like basic JavaScript, it would not be possible to understand it, but still I'll try to explain my best or what value to change and all of that. So here it's like on autoplay left in a swiper, like this swiper, we are basically checking the time and progress. So the way this works is if I just copy this much, like if I copy this much and let's add it after our autoplay, comma, okay. And I'm just going to do something. You don't need to do this, but it's called console log. This is a way to check our values. I'm going to check the value of time and progress because we have like time and progress variable here, right? This is showing an error because we haven't added this. So for time being, let me just remove it. You guys don't need to do this. I'm just trying to explain. And you can see we are getting some values because we're adding it in console. So the first value is our time, which is going from 2500 to 0 because we have set the autoplay to be 2500, right? So it does not go from 0 to 25, it goes from 2500 to 0, and the progress is same, it goes from 1 to 0. So it does not show like how much progress is done, it basically shows how much progress is left. Same with the swiper time, which is how much time it is left. It does not show how much time has passed. So for example, if I remove the time, then we will only see progress. You can see it's going from 1 to 0. Every time it changes, it goes 1 to 0, 1 to 0. When it reaches 0, it basically changes the slide. So here's what we are basically doing. We are basically going to create a container, which is going to be our autoplay progress bar, and we are going to change its width. And the width is going to be our 1 minus progress times 100%. So like I said, the progress is going from 0 to 1, right? Sorry, 1 to 0, right? So if we type 1 in here, let me show both, okay? So that would be much more easier, but you need to actually store this value, okay? So let's copy this. This is a basic JavaScript. It's the most starting first thing that you would learn in JavaScript. That is, we from the document find the element, which is this CSS class, and store it in this container called DM autoplay progress bar. So we can just place it after this one, okay? So you make sure you place it at the correct location. So we add constant in here, and this is where our swiper's code starts, right? So we have to actually store it before, and then the autoplay and all that stuff is here. I'm going to remove 1 minus for time being to show you guys, and let's do preview. We actually forgot to add, the freaking container that needs to be changed. So let's add our container. We can give it position absolute. We can place it, I guess, bottom or up, wherever you wish to. So let's do like 10. We can do 0. We can make it any size that we want. Maybe let's do red color because it's like bright right now. And we need to give it this CSS class, DM autoplay swiper progress bar. Obviously, you could change this anything to your own liking. We are basically checking our page to have. We are basically checking our page if it has this CSS class element. If it has, then it will add it in this container, and then we are basically playing with this container style width around here, okay? So make sure this container has CSS class progress bar. You probably don't even need to give it absolute. What you could basically do is make this have like 0 gap, that way it's around here. But if you do absolute, it will be overlaid on top of it. But if you do like this, it would be it would show like the full slide and then this one. So it's your choice how you want to do it. You could even place it at top, or you can even play with its height too, and any other property that you want. So you could see that because I did something called without any 1 minus, right? So in here I've written 1 minus, but here I removed it. The reason is progress goes from 1 to 0, right? It does not go 0 to 1. So how much is 1 times 100? It's 100%, and then it will go from, it will be like 0.99, and then it will be like 99%, and it will get like lower and lower because it goes from 1 to 0. But if you do 1 minus, then basically we are reversing it. We are basically turning it into 0 to 1. That's why we type 1 minus. So you could see as soon as I did one minus, it shows like this. You could do like, if you want, you could also do something like you could place another container in here like this, and then basically add this container inside of this one, and make sure this one has 0 padding. Make this one have like a, I don't know, grayish color. And then if you want, you could even do negative like this to place it on top of it, like this. Let's say 50. Oops, not at the bottom, sorry, at the top. So whatever the size it is, negative 50, it will be on top. I forgot what the size of it is, -10. Then why is it looking so bigger? Because of this padding. So let's turn this to 30, and let's turn this to -30, so that's on top. So you could see now it's overlaid on top. And if you want, you could even give it like a higher Z index so that it's on top of everything. That way we are controlling the inner container, but the background is set to gray color. You could see we have set it to gray color. And obviously you could just place it outside like this, and then give, which one is which, I forgot. So you could basically just give this one directly -30, and then it would be overlaid on top like this. If you want it to be on top, just place this on top. If you know a bit more JavaScript, then you would know that you could play with height. Just give it in just type it in ChatGPT, and it will just change the code. And you know what, let's just try that. So let's try one thing with ChatGPT so that we can quickly change it. So I'll do an heading. Let's add it right here. Okay, I'll do like right padding, and I'll make this P, and this one is going to be 0% by default, so that, okay, let me just show like this. Okay, I'll show all of this text, and I'll call it as, I don't know, DM autoplay timer. Okay, let's copy this. The ChatGPT, you could basically just go in here, copy this, and then basically just say that I want to change the text inside DM autoplay timer to show 0 to 100% like this. One important thing is ChatGPT does not know that you're using Elementor. And the thing about Elementor is that if you want the styling to be applied to this text automatically, because if you only type this, it would not work. I know that because I've used it many more times. If you go and check this heading, you could see that we actually have a container in here, DM widget container, or not even this one, sorry. Like this one, there's a container, and inside of this there is another container, and inside of this there is our heading. So there are two extra containers just for one heading, which is why it's a bit unoptimized. And hopefully in the version 4 that they are releasing, probably, like they said that they are releasing in 2026, like the beta version, that they would fix it instead of using 3, because that's like way too much for just one text. So we can say that our text is in Elementor heading title. This is the CSS class that Elementor adds automatically. So let's go in here and tell it that you could type something like this. Okay, so dot Elementor heading title. So this is going to be our, I want to change the text of this one. So inside this container there is something called DM heading title, where I want to change that. If you don't do this, then it would not have the styling that you applied on Elementor. And you would see that we have all of this. Now we need to store this, outside. You could store it inside too, but it's better, I think, to just place it outside around our constant around here. So we basically store that element in here. I forgot to give it the CSS class, right, which is this DM autoplay timer. So we forgot to give our text that, hey, this is the CS. Never mind, we already given it. They already done the math for us. Okay, for percentage mat dot round 1 minus progress and all that stuff. Let's copy this, and then let's paste it on our on property. So on this much, and make sure there should be a comma at the end. Okay, else the next part would not run. Let's do preview and see if it works or not. So you could say it does work perfectly. You could even check in here. you would see that we gave it the DM autoplay timer, and we are basically saying that inside of it there is one element called DM heading title. We want to change that. So when you add like space like this, autoplay timer space, we are basically saying that only do this effect to this Elementor heading title if it's inside this autoplay timer. And we got this to be working perfectly. And obviously there are a lot more stuff that you could do. If you know a bit more JavaScript, you would know that we can change the color of it based on the autoplay. We could change, like, you could even change the background color based on which slide is visible. Maybe if you have a pink slide, then the background should be pinker. If you have a green image, then the background would be in a green gradient and all that stuff. You could do a lot more stuff, but that would turn complicated to explain in a video. So yeah, that's all for this video. You could get the template. You could support me by using the affiliate links in description for Elementor Pro and all. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.